Another week of Wrestling with Wrestling. I am Steve Shives, joined as always by my partner in crime, the great Doc Gregory. Doc, how's it going, brother?
I'm doing quite well, sir. I have been reborn. As you can see, I am in clear 1080p, crystal clear, which is I love. And I have been reborn. I am now known as the Messiah of wrestling. Yes, Jesus does exist. So I just wanted to let you know I'm the Jesus Messiah of wrestling. I'm here to save all of you all from bad wrestling. And I want to make you all happy because Christians look at me. I'm white. That's great. You'll be happy to know that. And also I'm from America, so Mormons, you'll rejoice in knowing that I am actually from America. I've been here before. And I just wanted to let you know that this round of Wrestling with Wrestling is brought to you by Ship-Based Drinks. When you've had a rough day at work and you really want to tie one on, get shit-faced.
Thank you, Jesus of wrestling. That's hilarious. You do have a Jesus thing going on at the moment. That's really nice.
Yeah.
White American alcohol drinking Jesus.
And I've got my own pen now.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. That's a
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, thanks for that. That was from our good friend Rob Talbert, who has been on the show before.
Indeed.
Shout out to him.
Awesome. Yeah, you just had your birthday, right?
It was November 30th. You're looking at a 41-year-old man. Cut me open and count the rings.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we have any questions from last week's show that we could answer to begin our festivities this week?
We sure can, but a little nugget of logic or a little nugget of information here, because I see a post about this is episode 84. And if you're interested and want to, if you're one of those marathon watchers and you want to watch back from the earlier episodes in 2014 on, it would take you straight 5 1/4 days to watch every episode of Wrestling with Wrestling. I just wanted to let you know that that's binge watching at an extreme.
Wow.
So our first question here comes from Paul Clark. He says, "Hey guys, I wanted to get your thoughts on the Attitude Era. Seems many fans hold it so highly and want the WWE to go back to those days. I would be interested if you liked the era and if it did happen now, would it really work?"
I liked it. I was 17 and 18 years old when it started, in 1997, 1998. And it sort of brought me back in. I mean, I had always been a wrestling fan, but I guess I had kind of stopped paying attention for a few years. I would check in every now and then, when Hogan turned heel in 96, I kind of peeked in to see what was going on. I was like, oh, that sounds interesting, But yeah, the Attitude Era, the rise of Steve Austin, the rise of The Rock, that got me back into being like a hardcore wrestling fan, which I've been pretty much ever since. So yeah, I have to say I like the Attitude Era. Now, looking back, there was a lot of it that I don't really care for now. Especially with the WWF side of it, there wasn't much of a focus on the in-ring product. It was a lot more driven by storylines and a lot of the soap opera kind of things. And my head as a wrestling fan has always been, at the match. Like, I care mostly about the match, not about the storylines. The storylines to me are there to serve the matches, not the other way around. So I didn't like that aspect of it. And there was things that they did purely for shock value or to be risque or to be edgy that I find kind of boring now. And the booking of WCW back then was a mess. I mean, WCW doesn't usually get included with the Attitude Era. That's usually a WWF thing. But, the WCW Nitro booking, even though we look back on that as kind of a golden age, the booking was terrible. But no, I mean, the problem isn't that fans are nostalgic for it. The problem is that the company is too nostalgic for it. The company keeps reminding us, hey, remember the Attitude Era? Remember how awesome things were back in the Attitude Era? And what they should be doing is creating a new product today that gets people just as excited as people were for the Attitude Era. I mean, I don't know if that exact sort of thing would work today, but what would work is if they tried something different, if they tried pushing new stars and trying to make something creative and different and interesting with the product that they have now, which is what they did in the Attitude Era. I think that's what they need to do more so than trying to recreate something that they already did. What do you think, Doc?
Well, I enjoyed the Attitude Era as well, and I grew up in the '80s, so I got to see, the whole old. And it was more PG back in the '80s day because everything was so gimmicky. But I did enjoy that Attitude Era, especially when it came to people. It really showed you who the stars are going to be because they were able to get a hold of a mic and really show what they can do. It's like almost the gloves were off. I mean, to a certain extent back in the Attitude Era, and people were allowed to. They had freedom of character back then. So, as a wrestler standpoint, if you're a wrestler, the Attitude Era would have been great for you because you had an open door to pitch something maybe that would fit. Maybe stretch your character. That's how Stone Cold Steve Austin, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. If the Attitude Era didn't exist, I mean, then Steve Austin wouldn't exist because he had an opportunity to, stretch his legs as Stone Cold Steve Austin in the Attitude Era. And damn it, for the time it worked. He came along at the right time. So did The Rock, and so did a lot of great stars. Shawn Michaels thrived in the Attitude Era. And some of his greatest moments. I mean, I was a huge mark for Shawn Michaels back in those days. So I really, really do appreciate the Attitude Era. It's past its time. I think we can't really be the thing that really I've changed on, and maybe it's because I'm a lot older now, is the way I look back at the Attitude Era, and anytime I see the women come on, I'm almost embarrassed that I'm watching this because of the way they really demeaned women and sexualized them in wrestling. And that wasn't really what I liked about women's wrestling because I'm a huge fan of it. They treat it much better these days. Would an Attitude Era work these days? Well, it's getting a little bit more edgier. I think they're finding a way around it and trying to bring up the heat a little bit by working within the guidelines. I've heard a rumor recently about, their room. Well, Vince Russo recently went online and he said that USA is probably going to demand that they do something, because most of their programming that is on between 9 and 11 is a little bit more riskier than what you see Monday night between 9 and 11. And those ratings are down, unfortunately. So USA as a network can do something. I mean, it's not, to me, it wouldn't be like too much sweat off my back because I would just put the fucking program on my network. I mean, I think you can thrive and survive just by your network alone if everything was just on there, I think. But that was a really good question. I really enjoyed the Attitude Era, and thanks a lot, Paul Clark. Our next question here comes from, Boom Bruce. He says, is there anyone on the main roster that you think should maybe go back to a developmental league? And is there anyone you'd like to see from NXT on the main card without instantly being buried or thrown on the back burner?
At this point, there are a couple of guys that they just recently brought up from NXT. And by recently, I mean, like in the last couple of years, that might as well go back down because they're not doing anything with them. I mean, it's not like they're doing anything with Bo Dallas. I mean, why the fuck is he on the main roster? He was doing way better in NXT than he's ever done since they brought him up to the main roster. I mean, the thing about calling people up from NXT is they've shown repeatedly that they bring guys up from NXT only to bury them. So it's weird to think like, I mean, that's why you say in your question, Boone, you say, well, presuming, of course, that they wouldn't just be buried as soon as they get called up. I mean, look, I think Finn Balor is an incredible talent. I think he could be a top star on the main roster. I think Sami Zayn, when he's healthy, could be a top star on the main roster. I think those two could have gone straight to Raw. I don't think they even needed to go to NXT because they were both amazing wrestlers like the moment they were signed. But that's the way they do things now. They send everybody through developmental, whether you're a veteran or whether you're, just out of wrestling school, and that's fine. And NXT prospers because of it. That's part of the reason that NXT is so great, because they have a great mix of guys that are still basically in training and people who are signed from the indies and have a lot more experience. But I mean, fuck Samoa Joe. If they would bring Samoa Joe onto Raw and let Samoa Joe do what he does best. Just let him be himself and cut his own promos and have input into his angles and wrestle the style that he's best suited for, he would be a huge fucking star. There's no question in my mind that if Samoa Joe were given a Monday Night Raw sized spotlight and was allowed to get over doing what he does best, he would be a humongous star. So it's just a matter of whether they would allow him to do it, whether they would give him the support and the space he would need to get over the way he would. But I mean, that's the first name that comes to my mind, because Samoa Joe has been around forever. He doesn't need development. He doesn't need to be in developmental. I mean, it's great to see him on NXT. It's great to see him anywhere, but if they were willing to push him the way he needs to be pushed to get over, he would be a fucking humongous star in a couple of months. But those are my thoughts. What do you think, Doc?
Well, I agree with you there with Samoa Joe. If you're a guy who you can look back through the WWE footage and go, hey, look, he was on Raw before, then you don't fucking belong on NXT. You cut your fucking gums in Japan. You did it. You were great in Ring of Honor. You were fucking excellent in TNA. You were champion of both of these. And you go straight to what is kind of the minor leagues of the WWE, and that is a wrestler that does not belong there. He should have never gone there. The only way I would think that maybe he would belong there is that those guys are getting paid equally of what they would make on Raw. If that's the case, if I'm making that kind of money on, especially when it comes to NXT, because that shit's got such a fucking following, man. I mean, that's like prime rib of wrestling. NXT is awesome. So if you're making the bucks down there that you could make up on the big leagues, then fuck it. I'd rather just stay right where I'm at. And we've heard rumors around that, between some of the ladies and some of the male wrestlers up there, that they don't want to get called up to the main roster. So, I mean, there's rumblings there. I don't know if they're true. It's all speculation at this point, but there is rumblings that they would rather stay there. Would I like to see some guys called down? Yeah, it's those guys that are swimming. Zack Ryder is one of those. He's going down there. I'd like to see Adam Rose. I want to see how the Rose Bush does. But Adam Rose probably still belongs back down there, and all those guys that you seem to use. I mean, for fuck's sake, unless you do something here or pull the trigger with Dolph Ziggler, then that's where he should be. He's exciting, I mean, he would be great for that product. So yeah, shuffling people around is great. I mean, Breeze obviously is getting the best of Ziggler these days. So. But yeah, great question, Boom. Appreciate that. Our next one here comes from Donovan Frey, I believe. He says, Guten Abend, gentlemen. So thank you. I'm also German heritage. Appreciate that. Is that German? Yeah, I'm ignorant.
Yeah, I remember that much.
I just said I'm an American. Jesus. As I was watching the Ziggler-Breeze match, speak of the devil, it occurred to me that Ziggler was a two-time champion, which I forgot at times due to how often creative pisses on him. But it made me wonder, who's going to be the next it guy after Roman? Is there anybody you see within the next 5 taking the pardon the pun, taking the reins? Or do you think there's just going to continue about it aimlessly? He likes Cody he likes Cody, but he knows that's not going to happen at this point.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I was actually kind of going to say, is that they have a roster full of guys who have the potential to be the next it guy. They're not interested. They don't seem interested in finding the next it guy. They think they've handpicked the next it guy as Roman, and they're just going to keep pushing that until it gets over. And, I mean, Christ, he's injured at the moment, but Cesaro could easily be that guy. Kevin Owens could easily be that guy. Down in developmental, I think Finn Balor could be that guy. I think Sami Zayn could be that guy. Dolph could have been that guy at one point. I think it might be too late for him. I think they've dicked him around too much on creative the last couple. I mean, they could probably still rehab him if they wanted and make him into a real top guy. But it would take a lot of work, because at this point, he's just been screwed over too much. You know, I think Dean Ambrose is in a similar situation. I think Dean easily has the talent to become a top main event superstar, to be a huge star. But, you know, they've had him fucking around doing nothing for so long that at this point, it's like if they do all of a sudden decide to, you know, put a title on him, it'll feel like, oh, you know, this is the guy who loses half his matches. What's he doing with the title?
Oh my God, Steve McCall. Can you imagine Ambrose as our world champion? Jesus Christ. Can you pick a new tagline, JBL?
Yeah, really.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Yes, I can.
I can. Yes, I can imagine it. And, you know, and the same thing with Bray Wyatt. Incredible talent who's just been ruined by creative, you know? So, I mean, in terms of who the next guy is going to be, I don't know. The next guy is going to be Roman. You know, that they're not going to accept anything other than that. But as for the guy after that, I don't know. There are 10 or 15 guys on the roster that could fill that slot if they had to, but, you know, they're not making them. What do you think, Doc?
Well, that crop of wrestlers you were talking about right now, I mean, yeah, any of those. Dean Ambrose has it. He's got the crowd appeal. He's got the salesmanship. At this point, any one of the three members of the New Day, because I think they're well over at this point. They're using them for Shop Zone fucking commercials. But yeah, there's plenty of guys there right there that you can make the it guy because the crowd loves them. The up and coming guy who will be the future, I think the future, because he's got that showmanship, he's got the talent, he's got you know, the theatrical fucking ability to put over what the WWE loves, and that is Finn Balor right now. So as soon as he loses that championship, then he's going to make that move. That'll be the sign that he's going to come. But when he comes, that'll be the next awakening is Finn Balor. He's got it.
I hope so. I mean, I hope when they finally do call him up that they don't fuck around, because that is, I mean, talk about a waste of talent. I mean, that guy's been around on the indies for about 10 years now. He's wrestled in Europe. He's wrestled in Japan. He's a fucking fantastic worker. He's got a great, you know, like you said, a great visual flair, a great sense of theatrics. I mean, he's a good looking guy. He's still young. The girls would love him. The guys would love him. There's just, you know, if they call him up and then they give him the Neville treatment after 2 or 3 months, it's like, what the fuck are they even doing?
You know that void you lost when that B+ player Daniel Bryan got injured. Well, Finn Balor is not that B+ player. He's got what Daniel Bryan had, plus a little bit more to bump him up to A+ player. And yeah. I guarantee that he is going to be the next it guy in the WWE.
I hope so. I hope you're right, because they need somebody. You know.
That's all but the questions, sir.
That's it. Okay, well, I guess that was
only three. So I'd like to thank Paul Clark, Boone Bruce, and Donovan Frey for your questions this week. Make sure that you make sure that you ask your questions below on this video, and maybe next week I will pick 3 of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Ask us some questions. This is how we start the show. Every week now, we answer viewer questions. So leave a comment and ask us a question for next week. Now, that was fun. So I guess we have to talk about Raw now. Fun part of the show's over.
There were some happy things about Raw.
It wasn't terrible. I mean, I've read some reviews of it online that were a lot more negative towards it than I was when I watched it. But there were things about it that I didn't really care for. I mean, there were ups and downs, I guess. One of the ups at first was actually this first segment. I think it kind of went on too long and went downhill. But when it started, it was pretty great. The New Day came out, and the New Day are like the best thing on the show, you know. The New Day came out, and they played around with the crowd. They're in Pittsburgh, so they made fun of the Steelers, and they got some heat. And then they brought out Sheamus, and Sheamus came out with his WWE title, and he's wearing a suit that looks like he went to the same tailor as Corporate Kane, that fucking black suit with a red tie. And Sheamus and New Day goof off together a little bit, and Sheamus thanks Roman Reigns for being such a dumbass and spearing Triple H. at Survivor Series, giving him the chance to cash in Money in the Bank and win the title. They make fun of Roman for only holding the title for 5 minutes and 15 seconds. Sheamus says, forget about Austin 316. Sheamus 515 means I just kicked your arse. And they celebrate, you know, he holds up the belt. They throw confetti from the ceiling and his music plays. And then Roman Reigns runs in and Superman punches him and steals the title. And that's it. That's the end of the segment. And I mean, the New Day was great. Sheamus actually wasn't that bad either. I could kind of get used to Sheamus as the goofy heel champion because I didn't think he was terrible here. But Roman Reigns is still acting like a heel, even though his personality is still that he's the smiling babyface who like slaps people's hands and jokes around. It's like, so he's not doing like the Steve Austin thing where he's just a badass who doesn't give a fuck. Cause that's why it worked with Austin. That's why Austin could be a babyface and still punk people out and attack people because that was his character. He just didn't care. He was, you know, DTA, don't trust anybody. But Roman Reigns, most of the time, is like a cool guy. And he slaps people's hands and he high fives and he smiles and jokes. But then he punks people out and steals titles. It just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, what do you think of this opening segment here, Doc?
I thought it was beautiful. The New Day comes out, and then, you know, the confetti is falling. They look great. The color pops right off of them. This is one of my favorite parts of what a great way to open up Raw with these guys. Your tag team champions. I just didn't know what to say. But then, yeah, they introduced Sheamus, and Sheamus looks good. And I'd like to say that he was probably wearing Vince McMahon's suit from the Attitude Era. Because that's what it looks like. But he celebrates, yay. And then all of a sudden, that old, you know, from Grease the musical, because he's, what are they, the Thunderbirds or whatever in Grease? Yeah, that's what Roman Reigns is. He's like, hey, yeah, I'm trying to be cool here, but don't mess with me. Look, I got a knife. And, you know, I mean, he'd be Knitsky, you know, he's the Knitsky guy where they, you know, they're up there and they're singing, you know, tell me more. Did she put up a fight? And he sings that, and people are like, did you just actually fucking say, did she put up a fight, Knitsky?
What are you saying?
But you know, he's trying to play it off like he's the cool guy. You know, you're supposed to like him. He's the fucking greaser, man. You know, and then he comes in and he punks you the fuck out. He's absolutely a heel, you know. There's no reason why anybody should like Roman Reigns, and if you are liking him, you're a fucking idiot because he's not being pushed the right way. He's a Samoan fucking badass machine. You know the way they push Samoa Joe, the way Samoa Joe is. This is what this guy's made out of, and I don't know why they fucking missed a boat with that.
Yeah, I don't get that either. Well, it's like, I mean, I feel like it's the same way I feel whenever I see Titus O'Neil. I'm like, what the fuck is so hard about this? He's a huge, scary, muscle-bound mountain of a man. And they're like, oh, I know, let's have him be funny. Let's have him be a jokester. And it's the same thing with Roman Reigns. Here's this guy, he's like fucking 6'5", Samoan, fucking with a bodybuilder's physique, fucking the long hair, fucking tattoos all over him, right? And, you know, ever since the Shield broke up and he turned babyface, he's been Mr. Cool Guy who makes jokes in his promos and
that aren't his jokes.
That aren't his jokes. But then turns around and acts like a heel half the time. Like, and the heel stuff that he does isn't cool heel stuff. It's like cowardly heel stuff. It's sucker punching people and stealing champions titles and like coming in from behind and attacking people. And like a couple months ago when the last time I think we talked about him acting like a heel, when he called Bray Wyatt into the ring for that sit down and he's like, come on in, Bray, I promise I won't touch you. And then he immediately gets in his face and starts fucking with him and then hits him without Bray even touching him. It's like, well, what? Yeah. It's like, what is this guy's character?
Are you trying to kickstart the Attitude Era version 2? Come on, Roman, knock it off. You're not Steve Austin, bitch.
And if you want to be Steve Austin, then be a badass. If they want him to be the next Steve Austin, then book him like a badass. You know, where he doesn't come out and make jokes. He's serious. He's angry. He's dangerous. He doesn't just stand around and listen to people talk shit about him 2 feet from his face in the ring and then wait for his turn to talk. Can you imagine if somebody had talked to Steve Austin, the way Triple H talks to Roman Reigns on a regular basis, Austin would never have been, he would never have stood still for that.
Yeah, let me tell you how you do it, you Samoan punk. You walk into the ring like Samoa Joe did, and you don't even fucking make eye contact with your opponent. Oops, I'm sorry. Came undone there. But yeah, you don't even make eye contact with your opponent. You fucking stand there, you sign the contract, slam the pin down, you walk the fuck away, because that's what kind of badass you are. I mean, when it comes to how they should treat, and I don't want to paint, a culture, I would think this, in a culture that people can escape what you are. You have, like, the Usos doing the thing that the Wild Samoans did. It kind of is traditional, in the WWE. Every single one of your ancestors, except The Rock, which, let's face it, Rock's half black. He's got some Obama in him. Yeah,
the Rocky half.
That's just a fact. But and they want him to be that. But I think it would be better for Roman to sway off of that path and maybe eat a raw fish or two.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Paul Heyman tried to get him over as that kind of a guy earlier this year when Heyman was doing all those promos to build up to WrestleMania. And Heyman, he kept saying Roman Reigns is the baddest dude in the most violent tribe on the island of Samoa. And never for a second did you get that feeling from Roman Reigns. He never, even when they were kind of pushing him as, he would get in people's faces and he would fight, like, you never got the feeling that this guy was dangerous. And that's the problem. He's a humongous, impressive looking dude, and he doesn't feel dangerous at all. I mean, when heels can get up in his face and talk insane amounts of shit to him and insult him and demean him and tell him he's a loser and a fool and an idiot, and he just stands there and goes like, what the fuck is that? No,
I'm gonna have a witty comeback.
Yeah, and then finishes it with his fucking stupid catchphrase that he's been saying for 2 years and still isn't over. Believe that. I mean, it's just not working. And the crowd last week was into him, but the crowd this week didn't seem nearly as into him. Anyway, they go to a commercial break. They come back, and it's backstage, and Roman is just kind of hanging out backstage with his buddies, with Dean Ambrose and the Usos. And Triple H and Stephanie walk up, and they're like, hey, you stole the championship. Give us the championship back. And Roman's like, yeah, sure, here you go. Because, why would you steal it if you weren't just going to give it right back? And then they say that, Sheamus is really mad that you stole his championship, so he doesn't want to wait until TLC to fight you. He wants to fight you for the title tonight. But it's only going to be a 5-minute and 15-second time limit match. So if you can't beat him in that 5-minute and 15-second time limit, then you don't. Then the match is over. And Roman's like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. Because Roman don't care. So, and that comes back in later. They eventually, I'll go ahead and cover it now because it's all kind of boring. Eventually, they establish that if Roman doesn't beat Sheamus in the 5-minute and 15-second time limit, then not only will he lose his title shot at the pay-per-view, which doesn't make sense because that match is a title shot, but also his buddy Dean Ambrose will lose his title shot against the Intercontinental Champion Kevin Owens at the pay-per-view, and the Usos will lose their tag title shot at the New Day at the pay-per-view. So Roman has to beat Sheamus, or not only will he lose, but his buddies will lose their title shots. So, okay.
It's a power play move. It was brilliant. If you want to play dirty and be an asshole toward the people who, obviously you're not listening to, or maybe you would be that Simone badass. But you're not listening to the authority. See, I mean, look at what Triple H does to NXT. He touches it, bing, gold. But you won't listen to him. Maybe it's your fucking mistake that you're not where you need to be. Who's writing your fucking character? I mean, kayfabe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the perfect opportunity for somebody like Ambrose or somebody close to Roman to use this as an excuse to turn on him, to say, hey, asshole, not now you're not only fucking up your shit, you're fucking up my shit, you know? But yeah, so that's that. Those end up as the stakes for the Roman versus Sheamus match tonight. Now, we go back to the ring. It's a Survivor Series rematch. It's Dolph Ziggler versus Tyler Breeze. Dolph wins this one. He pins Tyler after a super kick. I thought the match was good. I thought the finishing sequence was really good. They kept rolling each other up and kicking out, and then eventually they both stand up and Dolph fucking tags him with the super kick and pins him. I thought it was a good finish. But this is a perfect example of how the way they book things keeps anybody from getting over, because Tyler beat Dolph at Survivor Series, and Tyler just came up from NXT, and Dolph was like his first feud with a main roster guy, and Tyler Breeze beats Dolph Ziggler in his first big WWE pay-per-view match, and it's like, holy shit, Tyler Breeze beat Dolph Ziggler. It's a big deal. And then like a week and a day later, Dolph gets his win back. Clean as a sheet. Beats him clean on TV in 10 minutes. And now the big victory that Tyler Breeze has over Dolph Ziggler at Survivor Series means nothing. Victory's completely pointless. And I guess maybe they'll do like a gimmick match or something to blow it off. They'll do something at TLC. But I mean, it just feels like, oh, hey, oh boy, Tyler Breeze beat Dolph Ziggler. Oh, wait, never mind. Dolph beat him. Never mind. It feels like nothing ever really means anything. And that's the problem with this show across the board. But what did you think of this match, Doc?
No, I mean, between these two guys, I mean, these guys are magical, and this is why I want them to be a tag team. And let me note that I said this about certain other guys that we'll get to later, that I wanted them to be a tag team. So I'm saying this right now, that Dolph Ziggler and Tyler Breeze should be a tag team. And because when they get into their little mesh, it's hard to tell which one's which sometimes, except that Dolph's got a little darkness in his hair. But great matchup between these guys. It's fucking brilliant. It's excellent. The quick 2 counts. As a referee, I would fucking be cursing them because my shoulder would be sore after this matchup. And yeah, I mean, yeah, you don't have the payoff, because here's Tyler Breeze, the guy you want to push. He's the new talent. I mean, if I was a guy like Razor Ramon, who had these awesome vignettes entering into WWE. Look at my arrival. I am coming to WWE. And said these guys like pop onto the fucking show, and they make a little splash, cannonball. But then the fucking lifeguard up there says, "All right, knock that off. It's going to be proper, diving from now on, feet first." But yeah, Dolph Ziggler gets the win, and the only thing that really we can do now to pay off, if it's a series, and I can understand a storyline as series if that's what it is. If we get to that TLC match and Ziggler pays off, and then, or not Ziggler, but either Ziggler, or because there's still hope for this guy. It would be a shame, honestly. It is a shame if Ziggler is the guy that pushes Breeze. I mean, if you think about it. But if he is going to be that guy, then the payoff has to be at TLC, so that you can push Breeze. It's going to be, he goes over Ziggler, moves on, so you can push Ziggler into another program, maybe rebuild the motherfucker, But if you are hoping to build a character in Breeze, he does have to go over at a TLC match. It's got to be fucking brilliant. Not what we see on free fucking television.
Yeah.
And it's just got to be good. Something you won't forget. And then he moves on, finds another. Bray Wyatt has no issue doing it.
Yeah, exactly. You build up the big pay-per-view match, you lose. You take 2 weeks off, you come back, you just attack a random person and start a new feud. That's the way Bray does it.
Damn, that's a heel move.
Yeah, and as much as I like Dolph, and as much as I think Dolph could be or could have been at some point a real top guy, if they have decided that Dolph's job is going to be that mid-card guy who gives the lower guys a boost up, then that should just be his job. Stop teasing with, oh my God, Dolph Ziggler is going to win the world title. Dolph Ziggler is going to be he's going to be in the main event. Just say, okay, Dolph's going to be that upper mid card guy, and he'll beat the lower guys most of the time. But then when a new guy comes up that they're really hot on, Dolph will be that guy to sort of lose to them and boost them up. That's fine. Lots of incredibly talented wrestlers have had that job, But if that's going to be his job, then when the time comes to put over the Tyler Breezes, then that's what has to happen. It can't be, well, Dolph wins half the time and Tyler wins half the time, and then when the feud is over, they're both kind of at the same level that they were. That's not using Dolph. That's just wasting him. Either he's going to be the guy to put people over or he's not. Speaking of,
yeah, have you ever thought about using your popularity and our love for wrestling, and especially because I know a shit ton of fucking wrestlers in my 20 years, have connection with, some notable names. Have you ever thought of, we could probably start a Kickstarter campaign, and I'm sorry if I'm overstepping my bounds.
No, go ahead.
But we could probably start a Kickstarter campaign to at least earn enough money to buy a ring, a wrestling ring, and that's from that point, all we need is to rent buildings. That would be easy. The main fucking thing would be a ring, because ring rental's insane. But I'm just maybe thinking out something about it. Sometimes I have these little brain farts and they spurt out. So, but just a thought, it's just a random thought. If anybody would support, maybe supporting us, we'll call it Atheist Championship Wrestling.
There you go. There you go.
ACW.
Every year, our big event every year, we'll have like the Christopher Hitchens Memorial Tournament. I'm sure Hitch was a huge wrestling fan. It's an idea, At least we could. At least we would have full confidence in the bookers, because I assume it would be us.
Well, you have the great writing skills and imagination. I have a niche for the business, and I also have I have the foot in the door.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. The problem with WWE is that they treat it too much like something other than pro wrestling. I mean, you have all these talented people, and it's like you have writers, most of whom have never actually worked in the wrestling business and certainly have not actually wrestled, and they're telling all the wrestlers what to do instead of asking the wrestlers, what would you like to do, or what do you think would be the best way to use your talents, and then figuring out how that fits into the show. Mm-hmm. Like, to me, that's the job. That's like me, if I were working for a wrestling company as someone who's never been a wrestler, and I was like a writer or a booker or whatever, my job is to say, okay, you're a wrestler. What can you do? What are you good at? Who do you want to work with? And then my job is to get creative and to figure out how it fits into the show, But now the last 5 or 10 years at least, they've been doing exactly the opposite, where they say, okay, we're going to take you, and it doesn't matter who you are. You could be